This is Jane from Blog Talk Radio. We have a 6-host panel tonight talking about how electronic surveillance is increasing in places like Europe and Asia, where they're monitoring whether you step out your door or not. There's an alarm system. Some of it takes place within smartphones. There's other electronic surveillances being developed. I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you.
From my friend's guitar playing. Countries have been quick to use the one tool almost all of us carry with us, our smartphones. Governments are also receiving support from private tech companies. Google and Apple announced in April they were working together to develop an API which could be used by countries' health authorities in order to build coronavirus tracking apps. A live index of ramped-up security measures by top 10 VPN details the countries which have been already brought into measures to track the phones of coronavirus patients, ranging from anonymous aggregated data to monitor the movement of people more generally to the tracking of individual suspected patients and their contacts, known as contact tracing. Samuel Woodhams, top 10 VPN's digital rights lead, who has compiled the index, warned that the world could slide into permanently increased surveillance. Now I'm playing a clip from Al Jazeera, the news source, about a quick history of surveillance and what people think about it.
Oversight over American citizens. The alternative the government suggested was responsibility for another terrorist attack.
The laundry list of things that the intelligence community had wanted for many years.
At the time, there were assurances the measures would be temporary, but they've been routinely reauthorized by Congress. Yet mass surveillance proved ineffective, counterproductive, and the data was being used for purposes unrelated to terrorism. It was only 12 years after the Patriot Act passed, with the whistleblowing of Edward Snowden, that we discovered the extent of the mass surveillance, and only then was the government's bulk collection of information about Americans limited. Now, with the spread of COVID-19, Snowden and others say there's an opportunity to learn from the past, as systems to monitor everyone's location at all times are being formalized in secret.
At the point these policies are being sought, these benefits are theoretical. Often there is no evidence for them, and they may never materialize. That capability will exist in 3 months, in 3 years, and in 30 years if we allow it to be implemented today.
Clusters of disease do need to be located swiftly and closed off, and smartphone data is being used to locate those not adhering to social distancing requirements. But we have few specific details on data collection. Facebook and Google have been in talks with the government on sharing information they collect about us. Online advertising companies that track our movements are discussing new COVID-19 revenue streams. The firm Palantir, whose data collection has been key to the Trump administration's deportation program, is creating COVID-19 models for the government.
I think COVID washing is a good term for it. Essentially, companies are seeking to exploit this opportunity to honour their reputation and to set themselves up to normalise their techniques and to eventually profit from them.
What's being called for is full transparency. Exactly what information is being collected, by whom, how long is it being kept for, and how is it being used, particularly by law enforcement agencies.
It is traditionally the disadvantaged in society who bear the weight of surveillance, right? We talk about the color of surveillance. Well, the color of surveillance is black and brown. And that's definitely something to be thinking about when you think about data, when you think about health data, when you think about the ways in which health data could be misused in a variety of particularly commercial contexts to treat people differently when they shouldn't be.
The consequences of pandemic policy for civil liberties go beyond electronic surveillance, and precedent shows a robust debate needs to occur before policies are enacted and not after.
Okay, so towards the end of that video, she was talking about how the weight of surveillance ultimately falls on the citizens, and usually it's paired out or segregated by people of minority factions that have often been mistreated. Now I'm pulling in Don. Good evening, Don.
Hello, Jane. Hello.
You and me are it so far. I know John gets off work at 9, so he'll probably be calling in within 15 minutes.
Okay.
So
And
anyways,
that's it?
so I did a large introduction. Tonight's topic is we're covering many countries in Europe and also in Asia have COVID tracking, not just for patients, but for the citizenry. In China, it's divided by neighborhoods, so if you leave your apartment and you turn your doorknob, an alarm goes off in somebody else's phone, and then that neighbor comes and checks on you to see why you're leaving your house. So there's hardcore surveillance, and then there's the type of surveillance that has to do with like a tree. Like if John X gets COVID, then who did he come into contact to? And those contacts are traced and notified, and then they track it that way. What's your thoughts on this digital style of limiting human rights and increasing surveillance?
Well, okay, a lot of things. First of all, you know how I feel about computers, and I've said that many times on the show. Also, we're talking about known qualitative indications of people's culture. There are times that there are actually the facial profiling and things like that, what comes off of your computer, who your website partners are, that's all being monitored 100%. So that's been like that all the time. I can't speak too much about. I don't know what I can speak on right now because I do work for, the.
You work for an arm of MS, which I won't say out loud.
That's right, and so I'm probably tempered on what I can say about them.
See, like, I'm not really against those types of people that you're working for in the same way John is, because I don't have a conspiracy theory mindset. Like, some of it's necessary. There was a part of the last video I played that said that how much is this surveillance really going for tracking healthcare issues versus finding other things about people?
It's all of the above.
Where is all this compilation of data? How is it going to measure out?
It's all of the above. You're providing, in some cases, crucial information over the internet, and they tend to save all the information, every keystroke in some instances, and people are just unaware of the things that are taken from them. And that's why this ID theft and these hackers and phishing calls, those are all easy money for weak prey. And this is the internet has.
When you really think about it, though, like, okay, I'm Jane. I run a radio show. I have a bipolar panel of 2 liberals, 1 moderate, 2 hardcore conservatives, and then occasional speaking guests. How much am I a risk to society? I make around $55,000 a year. Am I a risk to society? How much time should the Department of Homeland Security or the NSA spend on me?
That's the question that's being developed as we speak. There will be times where espionage can lead to bribery and, forcing people to take bribes or get bribes.
That's true. Like, okay, like they were talking about how the illegal immigrants were tracked through some kind of system, and the Trump administration upped the ante on private surveillance. But okay, get the illegals out of the country, but what if someone in our country is a distant relative of Bin Laden or somebody valuable in the Al Qaeda? Then those kind of people are important, not me.
Well,
In my estimated opinion, unless I'm drawing a battery of 10 to 15 radical people to call my show every week.
Right. Well, that's up. Being vocal is only one trigger. Anybody's political ideology or their cultural background or even their familial descent are going to be subjected to some kind of extortion or another at some time. And it's happening now, but it'll be sometime in the future. When you talk about privacy and you talk about having, a presidential candidate have 1,000 emails that were lost, quote unquote, and then the next thing you know, you've got the capability of getting these emails from some secret back door that's only planted in that mainframe. So you're talking about some really good probabilities that everything that is done is recorded, that you do on the internet is recorded.
Well, it is, I was talking, before you mentioned things about computers, if you have a Android, if you have a Google account, everything you do can be tracked. Where you go geographically, who you call. Technically, they could probably get into your emails and your Google Drive. So, like, I have a screenplay and a novel in there. Writing my ex-boyfriend, paying bills. Google stores all my passwords for every single site that I pay money on. Poshmark, PayPal, eBay, Minnesota Department of Power. Everything I do is tracked through Google.
Correct. And that's the way of the world. Because if you, as I said, several times on the show, if you've ever been to Reno, Nevada, or Las Vegas, Switch is the largest data storage agency in the world. And they store virtually everything. The mission statement, if you will, of them is that they are just storing data from school kids and the NSA, anything that has to do with security and defense. But for the most part, they've got storage facilities here in Reno.
I have heard of Switch, but I don't know very much about it, to tell you the truth. Can you explain what is it, like Tesla or what? What is it?
Well, they're huge computer factories, and they are pretty much fortified like
there's storage, right?
Fort Knox, and they have only information from pretty much every keystroke from every client they have in the world. And the thing that I've always been not a fan about is you never know how long that information is stored. Nobody can tell you, or nobody will tell you how long that information is really stored. So, it could be, in many cases, probabilities, it's all your life. But we're, getting to a point where, John is, his conspiracy theories aren't all that wrong. We're looking at the possibility.
I'm not saying they are, but there's a point that you can't get fully absorbed into it.
No, like you said, like we.
Because really, in our everyday life, even if they are tracking me, I'm not fully aware of it.
You're never aware of it because you don't exactly know what they're tracking. So if if somebody was a drug dealer and they were aware.
Well, why don't they Dumbo drop me a new car, these secret spies?
They probably
I just
did.
bought a 25-year-old car today.
I know.
John's on the air, so we won't diss his theories. John, by the way, before I let you in, I played a video on YouTube about people's thought lines regarding electronic surveillance, regarding tracking COVID, the virus, the patients, and the people who are disobeying the orders. And then Don and I got into what's going on with Tesla. I mean, not Tesla, but Switch, not Twitch. Twitch is a dating app. And by the way, we have a guest caller from South Dakota, I believe, so I'll take him in first. John, hold one moment. Hi, this is Jane from Blog Talk Radio. Who's on the line, please?
My name is Joe. Your name is
Hi,
Jane,
Joe.
right?
Correct,
Hey.
and there's Don and John. I hope this is a real call.
Yeah, it's a real call.
Oh, good, because
wanted to
sometimes
call
we
in
get prank callers. I'm pulling John Yoder and our other guest. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. You were talking about how it doesn't matter if we're traced or tracked because you personally are unaware of it. And then I heard somebody chime in and say, well, you're not going to be aware of it. The thing is, you're not supposed to be tracked at all. Yes, people should take precautions in order to protect themselves from a disease which nobody really knows if it's as lethal as people say it is. The thing is that the government is going to collect all of the information of all the millions of people in the United States and put it in a database. Now, I'm at your description page, and you're talking about government are also receiving support from private tech companies, and then you mentioned Google and Apple.
Right.
Well, let me give you my opinion. Let me give my opinion about that. They're not private tech companies. They're state-funded companies. You ever wonder how come Facebook ever got to be so large?
I'm not sure. I know that for a long time, their stocks were not open to the public, and then they materialized, and then they did become. I'm really not sure, but I didn't catch your name, by the way. What's your first name?
Joe.
Okay, yeah. So go ahead and explain what you wanted to.
Okay. Apple, maybe not Apple, but Zuckerberg was a dropout, I believe, from Harvard, started this particular platform. Facebook was already in existence. All of a sudden, they surpassed them, almost putting them out of business. How did a college kid get to do that? Where did the funding come from? Also, Zuckerberg's been in trouble, of sorts, with Congress for, not really banning, but for...
With the 2016 election, selling ads to foreigners.
Well, that was with Russia. Yeah, that was with Russia. But also as a result of their policies regarding privacy with their customers. So Apple, Google, in my opinion, I don't have any 24-karat gold proof on this, but for a company to become that large, from a college dropout, and for everybody, if you notice, every time you go to a website, there's always an icon there for Reddit, Twitter, and Google.
Right, like all the social network sharing systems?
Yeah, right. How do these websites get these icons? You have to think about it.
Well, even on cereal boxes and store windows, there's Facebook and Twitter icons. I just wanted to let John know I muted him for a minute. I'm going to bring him back in because there was background noise. John, I'll bring you in 2 minutes. First of all, did you see the movie The Social Network, Joe? It was
No.
about Zuckerberg's origin. So it started out that he did cop the idea from a pair of twins that were on the rowing team, but he had the intellect to bring it to the next level. So then he introduced Facebook to several college campuses, and then it kind of morphed from there. It hit the general mainstream public, and it overtook MySpace, and it became the social network. Now, some of the funding came from private investors, and also the guy who started Napster, helped them with their marketing, but it didn't really explode until like they got over 1 million users. And then in the beginning, Zuckerberg didn't want no ad buying, no commercialism, because he said he didn't know what he was creating exactly, and he didn't want it to be smothered with commercialism. Well, then eventually, they had like Google Play game apps and all that kind of stuff join, and then people started marketing more, and then businesses and celebrity profiles, and then Twitter took off with personal celebrity profiles that you could interact individually with celebrities, politicians, people running for office, and then it's like a huge thing now. Like, I'm 59 and I'm on 3 of the websites: Tumblr, Facebook, and Twitter, and also Blog Talk Radio, obviously. But some of my younger friends are on, they're on Instagram, Snapchat. They live on there pretty much. So it's almost like the inside of your soul is connected to the electronic device, and every thought you have or anything you want to share publicly somehow becomes your computer personality, and you're known to the whole world like that for people who are on there all the time. So Zuckerberg did start out humble, and by the way, he still drives a car that's only $25,000 or less. It's a VW something, but yes, he did eventually he sold out along the lines, and Facebook became something else, but in some ways I still respect him. John, are you still at work, or do you want to talk, John?
Actually, I'm leaving work, and actually there's a couple things I wanted to throw in right now.
Sure.
John. First of all, and we discussed this on an earlier... Hey, hello. We discussed this on an earlier show that the government had a life log program. They were trying to get information on everyone. And they stopped the program because it was too controversial. It was too much Big Brother. And the problem is they because of public outcry, they stopped it in February 2004. And Facebook was launched on February 4th, 2004. And there were a couple investors. One of them was a person with military background who threw in about $4 million. So basically what happened is he got the push through government to get all the information that government couldn't get through their own government programs. Now we give that freely. We want to tell everyone our high school, our religious views, our moral views, and anything about us, our personal lives, where we went, where we travel, and it's connected.
It's disgusting.
And it's all linked with the big 3. You've got Google, Sergey Brin, whose wife owns 23andMe, the genetic tracing family tree site, and her sister owns YouTube. So you have this unholy trinity of entities that have 90% of all the information in the world about you, your life, and everything, and they're selling it to the highest bidder. Now, a point that Jane brought up is like, well, why, they do this, why get so absorbed with it? Well, that could be, one way of approaching it. Just as the American citizens who accepted British rule and the Queen and went along with the program until some people said, we have rights. to have freedom, give me liberty or give me death. There are some people who will stand up against oppression. There's others who will just bow down to it, and they don't deserve the freedom that was given to them. They deserve to be slaves and to be sheep led to the slaughter. Now that's just a personal
Because they
opinion.
don't question it?
Because they allow themselves to be sheep. Think of it this way. Like example, Gavin Newsom is telling everyone, okay, shut down all the beaches because a couple people have been bad. Well, that's fine, but if 2 million of us go to the beaches, the cops are going to have to say, you know what, the voice of the people rule. As long as they're not doing anything dangerously bad, like assaulting each other, we're not going to put up the military. We have the freedom to assemble. We have the rights as American citizens. But other people will not stand up for those rights. They'll just waive it. And again, people who are able to fight for their freedom will lose it. That's my personal opinion.
Guess what the 15 companies are that own Google? It's an umbrella corporation called Alphabet Inc., Verily, Microsoft Corporation, Apple, Amazon, Calico, Berkshire Hathaway, DeepMind, Google Nest, Uber, Johnson & Johnson, IBM, Verizon, and Goldman Sachs.
So
and Tesla. They all own Google.
So you've got Jeff Bezos in there. You've got Bill Gates, Microsoft. Bezos would be the Amazon. Berkshire Hathaway is Warren Buffett. You pretty much got the cabal of people who want to rule the world and vaccinate everyone and chip us and control our every move and act like they're helping us because they're good people.
Well, thank you for that. Was very insightful, John. Let's turn to Joe for a minute because I'm not sure how long he wants to stay on the air. Joe, go ahead and you fill in your commentary now based on what John said.
Yeah, I disagree with what he said with regards to people who deserve to be, those who are sheep deserve to be slaughtered. No. You underestimate the propaganda of the public school system and the educational system in general. If you ever read a book, I forgot the woman's name anyway, she used to work in the Department of Education. She was there when people were thinking out loud about deliberately dumbing down the population back in probably, I think, around the 70s. I don't blame people for being brainwashed. We all were or are at some time. And those who can get out of the matrix, I say more power to them. But you can't forget that the government has been telling us ever since we've been kids that the government is our friend. The government has the responsibility to take care of us. The government has the responsibility of providing for us what we don't have if we're poor. So consequently, people are growing up with the idea, well, whatever the government says, since they're there to protect us, should be okay. So I don't blame people for being still in the matrix, as it were.
Like yes, they kind of look up to government, especially in election years. And for my friend right now who was working 30 hours a week at Taco John's and is now getting $1,000 a week unemployment, he's liking the government right now.
Of course. They want to influence the election so that immigrants and the lower working class will vote for them, because otherwise they know that Trump will win in the landslide. So they're doing it this way. But yes, people who do not fight for their freedom will lose it. But people don't know that their freedom is at stake. Everybody thought that if martial law was going to come to America, it would be wrapped in a flag and it would come the way that it did in Germany or in Russia, maybe in one fell swoop, and people would then take their guns and then fight the power. But it's not being done that way. It's being done under medical tyranny, under telling us it's for our own safety, and then they're couching it, not by, well, now they're getting a little bit more direct, but at the beginning it was, well, don't worry about the virus. It's not so bad. Look at what the virus is doing. We were kind of wrong. Maybe all of you should do social distancing. Now maybe you should do mask and social distancing. Now maybe within your own house, you have to practice social distancing. Maybe now there will be a new normal in order to protect yourselves from this virus, of which epidemiologists say this thing isn't as bad as the government says it is. There are epidemiologists and virologists who say it's bad, others say it's not. So who do you believe? I don't know who to believe, but I do know the history of our United States because I guess you could classify me as a conspiracy theorist, but I go by declassified documents. In other words, the government ratting out itself, confessing to its own crimes. So when it does that, I know the history of what our government will do to our people. I also know the power of its brainwashing. But, that's the way it
do you
goes.
think they're really going to rat themselves out or just morph it to a higher level cause?
No, they ratted themselves out because of the FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, which took one particular congressman, I think his name was Gross. It took him 11 years to get that act through Congress. He is the most unsung hero of Congress in the history of the United States. Because without the FOIA, we would know shit about what the government's doing.
Good point.
And even though there's a law that says if you're going to use FOIA to get documents from the government, they're supposed to give it to you within 30 days. But yet, the Judicial Watch and what's the other one?
John, you should be able to know Judicial Watch and who.
Yeah, Judicial Watch takes years to get documents, and the other one, the personal lawyer.
Judicial Watch is Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch.
It's Tom Fitton. But the other one, the lawyer for Trump, I forgot his name, takes him years too.
Michael Cohen?
No, the other one. The one that has a talk show, the one that shows up on talk shows all the time.
Sean Hannity?
No, it's not Giuliani.
Oh, okay.
No. Anyway, he'll come to me as soon as I hang up. But it takes him years. It takes him thousands of dollars in court appearances to get what the government promises us within 30 days. Now, when you add up, I don't have, I don't have 24 karat gold, solid, smoking gun proof that the government is perpetrating this or has perpetrated other certain atrocities. But I connect the dots. And I'm thinking, my liberties are at risk, my freedom, my body, my rights, and it's not the mob that's doing it to me. It's the government. So back to you guys. May
I just ask you one personal question of the whole night? You kind of have an East Coast accent, but you live in South Dakota, and I was wondering if you were a lawyer.
I live in Montana. That area code is South Dakota.
Okay, cool.
Well, one thing.
Go ahead, Don, because you haven't talked much lately.
Oh, that's all right. I agree with the caller, Joe, on a lot of things. It's just that he's under representing the mob because the government is the mob. Right now, we've got a mobster leader who is really doing business like the mob. And so, there's all kinds of similarities in that.
We will have part 2 in a few minutes.